I stood in the doorway of our bedroom, my hand trembling against the wooden frame, staring at the phone I'd just unlocked. 6 months. We'd been married for just 6 months, and there it was, glowing on the screen like a wound that wouldn't stop bleeding. Messages, photos, promises he'd made to someone else, the same promises he'd whispered to me on our wedding night. My chest tightened, my vision blurred. The room started spinning, and I had to grip the doorframe to keep from collapsing. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be real. But it was. Every word, every photo, every lie was right there in my hands. And in that moment, staring at the evidence of his betrayal, I made a decision that would change everything. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to be the heartbroken wife who fell apart while he moved on with his life. No. I was going to make him remember my name for the rest of his life. My name is Grace. I grew up in a small Midwestern town where everyone knew everyone, where Sunday dinners lasted for hours, and where love still felt like something sacred. My parents had been married for 35 years. They still held hands at the grocery store, still kissed each other goodbye every morning. That's what I wanted. That's what I believed marriage could be. I met Ethan at my best friend Sarah's birthday party 3 years ago. I almost didn't go that night. I'd had a terrible week at work. My boss had yelled at me over something that wasn't my fault. And honestly, all I wanted to do was curl up with a book and forget the world existed. But Sarah wouldn't let me bail. She showed up at my apartment, physically dragged me off my couch, and told me I needed to start living again. So I went. And there he was. Ethan. Standing by the kitchen island, laughing at someone's story, his whole face lighting up in a way that made you want to know what was so funny. He had these warm brown eyes that crinkled at the corners when he smiled, and this confidence that wasn't arrogant, just comfortable. Like he knew exactly who he was and didn't need to prove anything to anyone. We ended up talking for hours that night. We stood in that crowded kitchen, people swirling around us, music thumping from the living room. And it felt like we were the only two people there. He told me about growing up in Boston, about his job in marketing, about how he'd always wanted to travel, but never had the courage to just book a ticket and go. I told him about my childhood in Ohio, my job as a graphic designer, my dreams of one day starting my own business. So why don't you? He asked me. Why don't you just do it? I remember laughing. Because it's scary. Because what if I fail? He looked at me so seriously then. What if you don't? That was Ethan. He made you believe anything was possible. Made you feel braver just by being near him. When he asked for my number at the end of the night, I gave it to him without hesitation. And when he texted me the very next morning asking if I wanted to get coffee, I said yes immediately. Our first date turned into a 6-hour marathon. We went to 3 different coffee shops because we kept getting kicked out when they closed. We walked around the city talking about everything and nothing, our childhoods, our fears, our favorite movies, our worst embarrassments. He told me he'd been engaged once before, but they'd realized they wanted different things and ended it amicably. I told him about my last relationship, how it had ended badly, how I'd sworn off dating for a year. And yet here you are, he said, smiling at me in the glow of a streetlight. And yet here I am, I agreed. We dated for 2 years. They were good years, at least I thought they were. We traveled together on weekends, explored new hiking trails, tried every restaurant in the city. He met my parents and charmed my mother instantly by complimenting her cooking and offering to help with dishes. My father was harder to win over, but Ethan was patient, asking him about his woodworking hobby, genuinely interested in his stories. There were moments, I'll admit, when something felt off. Times when Ethan would pull away emotionally, become distant for a few days. But he always came back with an explanation. Work stress, a fight with his brother, family drama. And I believed him every time. Because I loved him. Because I wanted to believe him. When he proposed, it was perfect. He took me back to the lake where we'd had our first date, got down on one knee as the sun set behind him, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Grace, he said, his voice shaking slightly. "You're the best thing that's ever happened to me. You make me want to be better. Please say you'll marry me." I said yes through tears. Of course, I said yes. My mother cried when I called her. My father shook Ethan's hand the next weekend and told him, "You take care of my little girl, you hear me?" And Ethan promised he would. He looked my father straight in the eye and promised. Our wedding was small but beautiful. We got married in a little church on the edge of town, the same church my parents had married in. My cousin Emma sang as I walked down the aisle. Ethan's eyes filled with tears when he saw me. He held my hand so tightly during our vows that I could feel his pulse racing. When he said, "I will love you, protect you, and honor you for the rest of my life," his voice cracked. I believed every word. The honeymoon was magical. We went to a small coastal town in Maine, spent our days exploring tide pools and our nights wrapped up in each other. He talked about our future, about buying a house with a big backyard, about having kids, 2 or 3, about growing old together. Every word felt like a promise carved in stone. The first few months of marriage were everything I'd dreamed of. We'd wake up tangled together, make breakfast side by side, bicker playfully about who forgot to buy milk. He'd kiss me goodbye every morning and text me sweet things throughout the day. "Missing you? Can't wait to see you tonight." Little things that made me feel cherished. But then, slowly, things began to change. It started small. He began coming home later from work. First by 30 minutes, then an hour, then sometimes 2. "Traffic was terrible," he'd say. Or "boss needed me to stay late." His phone became permanently face down on every surface. He started showering the moment he walked in the door, even if he'd just run to the store for 15 minutes. And the affection started to fade. The morning kisses became rushed. The texts became sporadic. When I'd ask about his day, he'd give one-word answers. "Fine. Busy. Tired." When we went to bed, he'd turn away from me, scrolling through his phone until I fell asleep. I tried talking to him about it. "Is everything okay?" I'd ask. "Did I do something wrong?" "Everything's fine," he'd say, not looking up from his phone. "You're overthinking things. Work's just been stressful." But I could feel it, the distance growing between us like a chasm I couldn't cross. One night, about 5 months after our wedding, I woke up at 2 in the morning to find his side of the bed empty. I lay there for a moment, listening. No sounds from the bathroom or kitchen. I got up and walked through our quiet house, my bare feet cold against the hardwood floors. I found him on the couch in the living room, his face illuminated by his phone screen in the darkness. He was smiling, really smiling, the way he used to smile at me. He'd type something, wait, then smile again when a response came through. His whole body was relaxed in a way it hadn't been around me in weeks. I cleared my throat. He jumped so hard his phone flew out of his hands. He scrambled to grab it, locking it immediately. "Jesus, Grace, you scared me." "Sorry," I said. "What are you doing up?" "Just couldn't sleep. Thought I'd catch up on some work emails." At 2 in the morning on a Saturday? But I didn't say that. I just asked if he was coming back to bed. "In a few minutes," he said. I went back to our bedroom and waited. 20 minutes passed, then 30. When I woke up the next morning, he was asleep on the couch, his phone clutched in his hand, even in sleep. I wanted to believe him. I tried so desperately to believe him. But that voice in my head, the one I'd been ignoring for weeks, was getting louder. Something was wrong. Something had changed. And I was terrified of what I'd find if I looked. Before I continue, I need to ask you something. If this story is resonating with you, if you're feeling what I felt in that moment, please hit that subscribe button. I share these stories because I know what it's like to feel invisible, betrayed, uncertain. Your support means everything to me. Drop a comment below and tell me your name and where you're watching from. Have you ever had that gut feeling that something was wrong but were too afraid to look? Let me know I'm not alone, because what happens next will shock you. It was a Tuesday evening when my world completely shattered. Ethan came home from work and told me he had to go back to the office. "Big presentation tomorrow," he said. "Boss needs this done tonight." He kissed my cheek, not my lips, grabbed his laptop bag, and headed for the door. I watched him from the kitchen window as he got in his car and drove away. And that's when I noticed it. His laptop, still sitting on the kitchen counter. The laptop he supposedly needed for this urgent work project. My heart started pounding. I walked over to it slowly, like it might explode if I moved too fast. It was plugged in, fully charged, the little green light glowing. He'd forgotten it. Or maybe he hadn't needed it at all. My hands were shaking as I opened it. The screen came to life, and there it was. His email account, still logged in. He'd been in such a rush that he'd forgotten to close it. I sat down at the kitchen table, my legs suddenly unable to hold me. I told myself I was just going to close it, that I wasn't going to invade his privacy, that I trusted my husband. But my hands weren't listening to my brain. They were clicking, scrolling, searching. And then I found her, Olivia Martinez, a name that had come up occasionally when Ethan talked about work. Olivia from the marketing department. Olivia organized the team lunch. Just a colleague, he'd said. But these weren't colleague emails. These were love letters. Intimate messages full of inside jokes and secret plans and promises that made my stomach turn. He'd told her things he'd never told me, dreams he'd never shared with his own wife, fears he'd kept locked away. In one email from 3 weeks ago, he'd written, "Sometimes I feel like I made my big life decisions too young, before I really knew who I was, before I knew what I really wanted." Her response, "It's never too late to choose happiness. You deserve to be with someone who makes you feel alive." Him, "You make me feel alive. When I'm with her, I feel like I'm playing a role. When I'm with you, I feel like myself." I had to run to the bathroom. I made it just in time before I threw up, my whole body heaving, tears streaming down my face. When I'm with her, I feel like I'm playing a role. I was her. His wife of 6 months was just a role he was playing. I went back to the laptop. I had to know everything. I couldn't stop now. There were months of emails. They'd met at a work conference 8 months ago, a month before our wedding. They'd started talking at the hotel bar, he'd written. "I knew I was in trouble the moment you laughed at my terrible joke." Their first kiss had happened 2 weeks before I walked down the aisle. He'd made plans with her, dinner reservations at restaurants I'd begged to go to, places he'd told me were too expensive, weekend getaways to bed and breakfasts in wine country. Just the two of us, he'd written to her, away from everything, away from me, away from his marriage, away from the life he'd promised to build with me. And then I found the photos. He'd sent her pictures from our wedding. That moment when we'd cut the cake together, both of us laughing, frosting on my nose. He'd sent it to her with the caption, "Feels like a different lifetime." Her response, "You look so young there, so different." Him, I was different. I didn't know what I really wanted yet. I sat at that kitchen table for 3 hours, reading every message, looking at every photo, documenting his entire betrayal. My hands shook so badly I could barely hold the mouse. My breath came in short, painful gasps. At one point, I realized I was making this awful keening sound, like a wounded animal. There were messages from 2 days ago. After he'd told me he loved me, after we'd made love, after he'd held me and told me I was his whole world. The next morning, he'd sent her a message. "Can't stop thinking about you. 3 more days until I see you again." The worst part was realizing she knew about me. She knew he was married. In one message, she'd written, "I know this is complicated. I know you're trying to figure out what to do, but I want you to know I'm not going anywhere. I'll wait as long as it takes." His response, "I don't deserve you. I know I need to make a decision. She doesn't deserve this, but I can't keep pretending. I just need a little more time to figure out how to do this right. Figure out how to do this right like there was a right way to destroy your wife. Like there was a right way to throw away your marriage. Like I was just an obstacle he needed to figure out how to get around." I heard his car in the driveway at midnight. I'd been sitting in the dark for hours, the laptop closed in front of me. I heard his key in the lock, heard him trying to be quiet as he came in. When he walked into the kitchen, he startled when he saw me sitting there. "Grace, God, you scared me. Why are you sitting in the dark?" I looked at him, really looked at him. This man I'd loved. This man I'd trusted with everything I had. This man who'd stood in front of God and my family and promised to love me forever. And I felt nothing. The pain was so big it had gone numb. "Just couldn't sleep," I said calmly. "How was work?" "Oh, you know, long, boring." He came over and kissed the top of my head. I could smell perfume on him, floral and expensive, not mine. "I'm exhausted. Going to bed." "Okay," I said. "I'll be there in a minute." He went to our bedroom. I heard the shower start up. Of course, washing away the evidence, washing away her before climbing into bed with me. I sat in that kitchen and something shifted inside me. The numbness started to fade, replaced by something else, something cold and clear and sharp. I wasn't going to confront him, not yet. I wasn't going to cry and beg and ask him to choose me. I was going to choose myself. And I was going to make sure he regretted every lie, every betrayal, every moment he'd chosen her over me. The next morning, I woke up early. I made his favorite breakfast, pancakes with blueberries. He came into the kitchen looking surprised. "What's all this?" he asked, smiling. "Just felt like doing something nice," I said, smiling back. He hugged me from behind, kissed my neck. "You're the best." I wanted to shove him away. I wanted to scream. But instead, I just smiled and served him breakfast. "Have a good day at work," I said when he left. "Love you," he called back. I didn't respond. I just closed the door and got to work. I spent the next week becoming a detective in my own marriage. I learned his phone passcode by watching him unlock it in the morning before he was fully awake. I went through it whenever he was in the shower. The messages with Olivia were constant. Good morning texts, lunch plans, counting down until I see you. He called her Liv. He'd never had a nickname for me. I went through his car while he was working from home one day, found receipts stuffed in the glove compartment, restaurants, a hotel. The date on the hotel receipt was from 3 weeks ago, when he'd told me he was at a work conference in Chicago. A conference that apparently required a king-size bed and champagne on ice. I photographed everything. Every receipt, every message, every email. I created a locked folder on my phone and saved it all. A complete digital record of his betrayal. I even followed him one night. He'd told me he was meeting his college friend Mike for drinks, so I called Mike's wife Jen and casually mentioned that Ethan and Mike were hanging out. "Really?" she said, confused. "Mike's working late tonight. Said he wouldn't be home until 9. My blood ran cold. "Oh, I must have gotten the days mixed up," I said quickly. I grabbed my car keys and followed Ethan across town to an Italian restaurant I'd never been to, the kind with dim lighting and intimate tables. I parked across the street and waited. And then I saw her for the first time. Olivia. She was beautiful. Long dark hair, tall and elegant in a way I'd never be. She walked up to the restaurant and Ethan met her outside. He pulled her into a hug that lasted too long, his face buried in her hair. They went inside together. I sat in my car watching them through the window. They sat close together, laughing, touching. He reached across the table and tucked her hair behind her ear. Such an intimate gesture, so casual, like he'd done it 1,000 times. When they left the restaurant, they stood on the sidewalk outside. And then she kissed him. A real kiss. Deep and passionate. The kind of kiss that says, "I love you," without words. And he kissed her back. His hands cupped her face. He pulled her closer. They stood there under the streetlight, completely wrapped up in each other. I drove home crying so hard I could barely see the road. I had to pull over twice because I was shaking too badly to drive. This was real. This wasn't just texts or emails. This was real, physical betrayal. He loved her, or thought he did. But then, sitting in my car on the side of the road, something clicked. The tears stopped. My breathing steadied, and I felt this cold fury settle over me. I wasn't going to fall apart. I was going to fight back. I called a divorce lawyer the next morning. Her name was Patricia Chen, and she came highly recommended by a friend who'd gone through a divorce 2 years earlier. "She's tough," my friend had warned me, "but she'll fight for you." I met Patricia at her downtown office. She was in her early 50s, impeccably dressed, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. I sat across from her and told her everything. I showed her the emails, the texts, the photos, the receipts. I laid out the entire timeline of his affair. She listened without interrupting, taking notes. When I finished, she looked up at me. "What do you want, Grace? Do you want to try to save this marriage, or do you want out?" "I want out," I said without hesitation. "But I need to protect myself first. I need to make sure he can't hide assets or claim I'm being irrational. I need to be smart about this." She smiled. Not warmly, but with respect. "Then here's what we're going to do." Over the next month, Patricia became my secret weapon. She taught me how to protect myself financially, how to document everything, how to prepare for the battle ahead. We went through all our finances together. Ethan had always handled our money and I'd trusted him, but Patricia showed me how to look deeper. That's when we found the credit card I didn't know about. In his name only, with thousands of dollars in charges. Hotels, restaurants, jewelry. He'd bought her a necklace that cost more than my engagement ring. "Document it all," Patricia said. "Every charge, every lie. We'll use it when the time comes." I opened a separate bank account without telling Ethan. Started moving small amounts of money from our joint account. Not enough for him to notice, but enough to build a safety net. I made copies of every important document. Our mortgage, his pay stubs, tax returns, insurance policies. "You're very thorough," Patricia told me during one of our meetings. "You should consider becoming a paralegal." "I'm just motivated," I replied. Motivated by the thought of him thinking he won. I also started taking care of myself. I joined a gym. Not to look good, but because I needed somewhere to channel my rage. I'd hit the heavy bag until my arms burned, imagining his face. I'd run on the treadmill until I couldn't think anymore. It helped. I started seeing a therapist, too. Dr. Sarah Morrison specialized in trauma and betrayal. She was exactly what I needed. She didn't tell me everything would be okay. She just listened and helped me process what I was feeling. "You're grieving," she told me. "You're grieving the marriage you thought you had, the man you thought he was. That grief is valid." In her office, I let myself fall apart. I cried and screamed and said things I couldn't say to anyone else. That I felt stupid, that I felt replaceable, that I wondered what was so wrong with me that he'd rather lie than love me. "Nothing is wrong with you," Dr. Morrison said firmly. "He made choices. Every day he chose to betray you. That's on him, not you." At home, I kept up the act. I was the perfect wife. I made dinner. I smiled. I pretended everything was fine. And Ethan never suspected a thing. He was too wrapped up in his lies to notice I was building a case against him. 6 weeks after I'd found the first email, I had everything I needed. The documentation, the lawyer, the plan. But I wanted one more thing. I wanted to expose him. Not just to me, not just in divorce court. I wanted everyone to know what he'd done. His family, his friends, his coworkers. I wanted the truth to come out in a way he couldn't control or spin. And then the perfect opportunity presented itself. I need to pause here and ask you something. What would you do in my situation? Would you confront them immediately? Would you leave quietly? Or would you plan your revenge like I did? I want to hear from you. Drop a comment and tell me about a time you were betrayed. How did you handle it? Did you wish you'd done something differently? Also, if you're invested in this story, please hit that subscribe button. It helps me keep sharing these real stories of survival and strength. Because what I'm about to tell you next is the moment everything exploded, and you need to be ready for it. Ethan's company was hosting their annual charity gala, a black tie event where everyone dressed up and pretended to care about whatever cause was trendy that year. He'd mentioned it weeks earlier and asked me to be his date. At the time, I'd said yes, thinking it might be nice. But now? Now it was the perfect stage for my final act. The night of the gala, I got ready with care. I wore a red dress that hugged every curve, did my makeup flawlessly, wore the diamond earrings my grandmother had left me. When I walked into the living room, Ethan actually stopped what he was doing and stared. "Wow," he said. "You look incredible." "I know," I said, smiling. The gala was exactly what I expected. Lots of people in expensive clothes making small talk and drinking wine that cost more than my car payment. Ethan introduced me to his coworkers, his arm around my waist, playing the devoted husband perfectly. And then I saw her. Olivia. She was standing near the bar wearing a black dress, her hair pulled back elegantly. She was talking to someone but kept glancing around nervously. She didn't know I knew. She didn't know I'd seen her kiss my husband under a streetlight. She thought she was safe. I excused myself from Ethan and walked straight up to her with a glass of champagne in my hand. "Hi," I said brightly. "I'm Grace, Ethan's wife." The color drained from her face. Her eyes went wide. She tried to stammer out a greeting, but I cut her off. "We should talk," I said sweetly. "Don't you think?" I led her to a quiet corner of the venue. She kept trying to make excuses, to leave, but I wasn't letting her go anywhere. "I know everything," I said calmly. "The emails, the texts, the hotel rooms. I've known for weeks." She started to cry, started apologizing, saying she didn't mean for it to happen, that she never meant to hurt anyone. "You knew he was married," I said coldly. "You made a choice. Every single day you chose this, so don't insult me with your tears." I turned and walked away, leaving her standing there shaking. But I wasn't done, not even close. I found Ethan talking to his boss and several colleagues. He smiled when he saw me approaching, reaching out to pull me into the group. I smiled back. "Can I borrow my husband for a moment?" I said loudly enough for everyone nearby to hear. "There's something important I need to give him." He looked confused, but followed me to a quieter area. That's when I handed him the manila envelope I'd been carrying in my clutch all evening. "What's this?" he asked, still smiling. "Open it," I said. His smile faded as he pulled out the contents. Divorce papers. And underneath them, copies of every email, every text, every receipt I'd collected. His face went white. "Grace, what?" "Don't," I said quietly. "Don't you dare try to explain this away. I know everything. I've known for weeks. I've been documenting every lie while you played me for a fool." "We can fix this," he said desperately, trying to take my hand. "Please, we can work through this." I pulled away from him like he was diseased. "There's nothing to work through. You chose her. So now you get to live with that choice." I turned and walked back into the main room. People were starting to notice something was wrong. Ethan followed me, trying to get me to stop, but I kept walking until I was in the center of the room. And then I did something I never thought I'd have the courage to do. I spoke up, not loudly. I didn't need to yell. The room gradually quieted as people realized something was happening. "I want to thank Ethan's company for hosting such a lovely event," I said clearly. "It's nice to finally meet some of the people my husband works with, like Olivia Martinez from marketing." Olivia, still standing near the bar, looked like she wanted to disappear. "Ethan and Olivia have been working very closely together," I continued. "For about 8 months now, actually. Late nights, weekend trips, very dedicated to their projects." Ethan was trying to get to me, but his boss had stepped in front of him, a look of understanding and anger on his face. "Unfortunately, I won't be attending any future company events," I said, "as I'm divorcing my husband for infidelity. but I hope you all have a wonderful evening." The room was dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop. I set my champagne glass on the nearest table and walked out. Ethan called after me, but I didn't stop. I didn't look back. I walked to my car, got in, and drove away. And for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. The days after the gala were chaos. Ethan called me hundreds of times, sent me countless texts begging me to talk to him, showed up at the house, but I'd already changed the locks. I'd moved his things to a storage unit while he was at work the day before the gala. My lawyer served him the divorce papers officially. He tried to fight everything. The house, our savings. He even tried to claim I'd ruined his reputation and career by making a scene at the gala. But Patricia was relentless. She buried him in evidence. Every email, every receipt, every lie. In our state, infidelity mattered in divorce proceedings. And Ethan's affair was so well documented that he had no defense. The divorce took 4 months. 4 months of legal battles and arguments and him trying to paint me as vindictive. But in the end, I got what I deserved. The house, most of our savings, and my freedom. Olivia lost her job. Ethan's company had strict policies about workplace relationships, especially between employees who worked on the same projects. When everything came out, HR investigated and found evidence that their relationship had affected their work. They let her go. I didn't feel sorry for her, not for a second. Ethan's reputation was destroyed. Word spread quickly in their industry. He lost friends. His own mother called me to apologize, telling me she was ashamed of her son. I thanked her graciously, told her I appreciated it, but I also told her I'd never forgive him. The months after the divorce were hard. I went through periods of intense anger, then grief, then relief. Dr. Morrison helped me work through all of it. She reminded me that healing wasn't linear, that some days would be harder than others. I threw myself into rebuilding my life. I took online courses, started freelancing on the side, made plans to eventually start my own graphic design business. I reconnected with friends I'd neglected, started traveling again, did all the things I'd put on hold while I was trying to be the perfect wife. One day, about a year after the gala, I ran into Ethan at a coffee shop. I'd just finished meeting with a new client and was feeling good about life. And there he was, standing in line. He looked different. Older, tired. There were dark circles under his eyes and he'd lost weight. When he saw me, he froze. I could see everything in his face. The regret, the shame, the realization of what he'd lost. He opened his mouth to say something, but I just shook my head. "There's nothing left to say, Ethan." I walked past him, out the door, into the sunshine, into my new life. And I didn't look back. So what did I learn from all of this? I learned that betrayal doesn't define you. How you respond to it does. I could have stayed. I could have tried to forgive him, gone to couples counseling, pretended everything was fine. Some people do that and it works for them. But I would have lost myself in the process. I would have spent the rest of my life wondering when he'd do it again, wondering if I was enough, checking his phone, never fully trusting him. That's no way to live. Walking away was the hardest thing I've ever done. There were nights I lay in bed crying, wondering if I'd made a mistake, if I should have fought for my marriage, but then I'd remember that you can't fight for something when you're the only one fighting. He'd already given up on us. He'd chosen her over me every single day for 8 months. My revenge wasn't about destroying him, it was about refusing to be silent. It was about reclaiming my power and my dignity. It was about showing him and showing myself that I wasn't going to be a victim, that I had value and deserved better. Today, I'm stronger than I've ever been. I'm happier. I'm free. I started my own business, and it's thriving. I have friends who love and support me. I've traveled to places I'd only dreamed about. I've become the person I was always meant to be. And Ethan? He's just a chapter in my story now. A painful one that taught me everything I needed to know about my own strength. He reached out once more, about 6 months ago, saying he'd made the biggest mistake of his life and asking if we could talk. I blocked his number. Because I realized something important. He didn't deserve a second chance. Not because I'm cruel or unforgiving, but because I deserve better than someone who threw away our marriage like it meant nothing. I deserve someone who chooses me every single day, who doesn't need to figure things out or find themselves at my expense. And you know what? I'd rather be alone than settle for someone who makes me question my worth. So let me ask you one final time, if you were in my shoes, what would you have done? Would you have exposed him like I did? Would you have left quietly? Or would you have tried to save the marriage? Tell me in the comments. Share your story. Let's build a community of people who refuse to settle for anything less than they deserve. And if this story touched you, if it made you feel something, hit that subscribe button. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Because betrayal might break your heart, but it doesn't have to break your spirit. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here with me through this journey. And remember, your story isn't over. Not by a long shot. You are stronger than you know. You are worth more than someone's half-hearted love. And you deserve a life filled with people who choose you every single day without hesitation. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next story.